An amateur model and a professional model, the difference between them is quite immense. However, I have noticed that through my last video and the workshops that I went to, working with professional models was very easy to translate all those skills that I've learned into teaching and coaching an amateur model. Now, insert my friend, Marco. Now I am going to go into posing at the end of this video, but first I want to start with composition. One of you guys had asked me this in my last video. Now, when I look for composition, it really does depend on the style and also the goal of the model and what types of photos they want out of it. So I asked Marco, I asked him what type of photos he would like, and he was really looking for a very street/urban type of grungy look. Now what that made me think is, let's go into alleyways, let's look for some really grungy graffiti that has a lot of color in it. I can put him in front of this graffiti and it will make him really pop. So then I started thinking, well, if that's going to be the composition, what type of clothes and colors does he need to wear to complement that? Now you always want to go for contrasting colors, so what I asked Marco to wear was something that was white, would have maybe a gray accent like a coat, or to have like beige colors. Now the purpose behind this is if he's standing in a very gray alleyway or in front of some really colorful graffiti, the white from his outfit will really make him stand out. Now I picked this wall because it had a lot of contrasting colors. It had purple and blue on a brick wall, and to be honest with you, that's exactly the style that I was looking for. For basic compositions that I was looking for is really just a lot of leading lines. Now we're in an alleyway, and I noticed that if I stood in front of the sun and shot down the alleyway, the wall would act as my own leading line. If I posed him correctly, which I did in a way that had a lot of angles to it, and it really accentuated his style, it accentuated his body type, but also it allowed for that leading line to look a little bit more purposeful as well. I wanted to get this shot from up underneath, and so I got him to stick out his leg, and I used his foot and his leg as a leading line. I find that really makes a very big difference when it comes to portrait photos instead of the plain old, headshot type of thing. Now I mentioned in my last video that communication is really important, and it's important to break the ice so that people can feel a little bit less tense. However, I thought that applied to strangers. Now, I was shooting with my friend. We hung out before this shoot and we were already cracking jokes. However, something that I noticed was when I was taking the photos and I was framing him up, his shoulders looked really tense. You do look a little stiff, so kind of like shake out the shoulders a little bit, and then just kind of lean forward kind of casually. And I found that it really helped him once he reposed, that he was actually very calm and a lot more relaxed when the camera was on him again. And think about it, really do think about it. Any type of camera that has any type of lens pointed at someone will always feel intimidating and uncomfortable. The one thing that I learned from my portrait workshops is that posing requires a lot of inspiration. Now, for me, what made me a lot more comfortable in getting inspiration and posing anyone, especially an amateur, made me realize that it does go through experience. Now, I know that's a bit of a cop-out answer, however, I'll tell you a few strategies to gain more experience. Obviously, a workshop is absolutely amazing to kind of give you a head start in this. However, if you don't have access to that in your town or where you live, what I found was to look online. I started following a lot of portrait photographers and watching how they posed their models, but also I followed all the models themselves, and I realized that everyone had maybe 10 or 12 poses that they would just cycle through. And I realized that a lot of these poses work for men and women. Now, I did take inspiration from a model that I shot during the workshop, and I'll show you the side-by-side photos and where I got that inspiration from. Through this video, you can copy those poses. And if you like it and you realize that your model that you're working with could look good in those poses, then you can steal, you can take my ideas. That's exactly what this video is for. Now, I spent a lot of time coaching Marco through all the poses and to really do tweaks to his facial features and expressions to really get the shot that I wanted to get. Kind of have like an inquisitive look about you and feeling. Kind of keep your mouth closed and use I guess, your facial expressions with your eyebrows, your cheek muscles and such to kind of convey a inquisitive look, if that makes any sense. After tweaking very small details in the way he smiles and his eyes and where he's looking and such, it really transforms the entire face, but also the photo and the expression that he ends up giving out. Now, obviously with a professional model, they know how to do this all the time. So where I was getting my inspiration was seeing how a professional model looks at the end of the photo, trying to coach or technically sculpt my model, Marco, into the person that I wanted him to look like. He had a really cut jaw, like a really cut jaw. So I really wanted to accentuate that angle and that just jawline. So I made sure that I used a few techniques, which I'll go into just a second, on how I really accentuated those features. Now, speaking of features, that's where I was really hyper aware of the small details. I think this was because I was paying more attention to coaching him, but I noticed there was one time where his shirt was kind of like puffed out at the front, and it didn't really look good because he has quite a small waist, and I wanted him to look very lean because it's kind of like scrunching up.
Oh, gotcha.
So if it could still stay. Now, I noticed that in a different circumstance, can you fix your pants because they're going above the sock right now? I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. So definitely be on a lookout for those small things that you can change. All right, so I mentioned that I had a few other techniques to really make small adjustments to accentuate facial features or for posing in general. Now, it's gonna sound a bit weird, but definitely keep up with me. One technique is called mewing. Some people may have heard of it because it's kind of going around right now, but essentially what it is that you put your tongue at the top of your mouth and then you suck in. Now what that does is it pulls your neck muscles and the bottom part of your neck here up. Because you're sucking and you're making that suction, it brings it all up and it accentuates the jawline a lot more. Now don't be ashamed of bringing this up because honestly a lot of professional models would understand that this is how they get a very clean jaw. So the second technique that I used was taught to me by my friend Albert. You've seen him in one of my videos. He started a YouTube channel, so the link is down below. However, what he taught me is the hair pulling technique. Essentially, the best way to explain this is pretend as if someone is pulling at the back of your head. And what this does is immediately straighten out your back, but most importantly, your neck. Usually when you go to pose someone, you want their chest up, shoulders back, but sometimes their head is just not in the right place or it's a little bit too far forward. Now the purpose of this technique is to pretend as if someone is pulling from up here, and essentially it goes from this to this. And immediately you're a lot more straighter and your posture has been fixed. So for the photo, that can really make a huge difference in the way that this person is posed. Now there are other posing techniques and tips that I can get into, like posing a certain facial structure or what to look out for while you are posing somebody. But to be honest, this video will get way too long. So if you want to see another video covering posing specifically, do let me know. The difference between an amateur model and a professional model, it's a lot in terms of the experience that they have, but in terms of the experience that you get and the experience that you can have on the photo shoot itself is very similar, if not the same, to be honest with you. An amateur, you get a little bit more leeway to have a lot more fun together. There's less expectation of the end result. So you're really just going out there to just try out new things. Be open to yourself, your own expression, and how you want others to express themselves as well. Because let's be honest here, when you want to pose someone, when you want to do a photo shoot, no matter how wacky it is just a self-expression. So enjoy it. You'll be able to figure it out, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. So I'll see you guys in my next video.